My name is Daniel, and my mother was the only family I had left. We lived in a small apartment, just the two of us. She worked 2 jobs her entire life just to give me a better future. No matter how tired she was, she always smiled when she saw me. To me, she wasn't just my mother. She was my whole world. Everything changed one night. The night she suddenly collapsed in the kitchen. I was in the living room when I heard a loud noise. A glass shattering on the floor. "Mom," I shouted. No response. My heart started racing as I ran into the kitchen. And what I saw froze my entire body. She was lying on the floor, motionless. Her hand was shaking slightly, and her breathing was weak. "Mom, stay with me," I cried, grabbing my phone with trembling hands. I called the ambulance, my fingers barely able to press the numbers. Within minutes, the paramedics arrived and rushed her to the hospital. I sat beside her in the ambulance, holding her cold hand, praying she would survive. That night, we reached the hospital that would later become the biggest nightmare of my life. At first, everything seemed normal. Doctors surrounded her bed. Nurses moved quickly. Machines beeped loudly around us. One of the doctors walked toward me with a serious face. "Your mother needs immediate treatment," he said. I nodded desperately. "Please do whatever it takes to save her." They took her inside the emergency room and closed the doors behind them. I stood outside alone, helpless, staring at that red emergency sign glowing above the door. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like years. Finally, after what felt like forever, a nurse came out. But something about her face didn't feel right. She avoided eye contact. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Is my mom okay?" I asked nervously. She hesitated for a moment, then forced a weak smile. "She's stable for now," she said quickly. But deep inside, I felt something was wrong. Something they weren't telling me. That night, I sat alone in the hospital hallway, watching doctors walk in and out of her room. And then, around 3:17 a.m., everything changed. A loud alarm suddenly echoed from inside her room. Machines started beeping wildly. Doctors rushed inside. Nurses ran past me without saying a word. My heart dropped into my stomach. I tried to enter the room, but a nurse blocked my way. "Please wait outside," she said firmly. "Wait. That's my mother in there," I shouted. But she didn't move. Through the small glass window, I saw doctors panicking, not working carefully. Panicking. One of them shouted, "Where is the medication?" Another voice replied, "We don't have it ready yet." My mind went blank. Medication not ready? How could that be possible? This was a hospital, not some careless place. Seconds later, everything went silent. The alarm stopped. The shouting stopped. Even the footsteps stopped. And then, a doctor slowly walked toward me. His face was pale. His eyes avoided mine. At that moment, before he even said a word, I already knew. My mother was gone. But what I didn't know yet was that her death was not an accident. It was their mistake. And soon, I would uncover a dark secret hidden deep inside that hospital. One that would destroy them all. My mother's death certificate was handed to me just a few hours later. Cause of death: natural cardiac arrest. Natural? That word kept echoing in my mind again and again. Something didn't feel right. Just a few hours ago, I heard them shouting about missing medication. How could that be natural? I stood there in the cold hospital hallway, holding the paper in my shaking hands. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not yet. Because deep inside, a strange feeling kept whispering, "They're hiding something." The next morning, I returned to the hospital to collect my mother's belongings. Her phone, her clothes, and the small gold bracelet she always wore. A nurse handed me a plastic bag. "Here are your mother's items," she said quickly. She didn't look at me. Not even once. Her voice sounded nervous, rushed, almost afraid. That same uneasy feeling returned. As I turned to leave, I accidentally dropped the bag. Her phone slipped out and hit the floor. The screen lit up for a second, and that's when I noticed something strange. 3 missed calls, all made around 3:12 a.m., just minutes before the alarm went off. The caller ID read, Hospital internal line. My heart started pounding. Why would the hospital call my mother when she was already inside the emergency room? That didn't make any sense. Not at all. Later that day, I sat alone at home, staring at her phone. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. There was a voice recording saved at exactly 3:10 a.m. I frowned. My mother never recorded anything. So why was this there? With a deep breath, I pressed play. At first, there was only silence. Then faint voices. Hospital voices. A woman's voice whispered nervously. We gave her the wrong dosage. My entire body froze. Another voice responded. Delete the record before anyone finds out. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. But inside my chest, a storm had started. Wrong dosage. Those two words echoed louder than anything else. This wasn't natural. This wasn't fate. This was negligence. And they knew it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the recording again and again. Each time, my anger grew stronger. By morning, my grief had slowly turned into something else. Determination. I went back to the hospital the next day, not as a grieving son, but as someone searching for answers. At the reception desk, I requested my mother's medical records. The woman behind the desk typed something into her computer, then suddenly froze. Her face turned pale. She looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me. Your mother's records are unavailable right now, she said. Unavailable? That word hit me like a punch. How can medical records just disappear? I asked. She swallowed nervously. It's a system issue. System issue. Another lie. I could feel it. Something big was being hidden. Something dangerous. As I walked down the hospital hallway, I heard two nurses whispering near the corner. They didn't notice me standing nearby. Did you hear? One nurse whispered. The boy came back again. My breath stopped. They were talking about me. The second nurse spoke softly. If he finds out about the medication delay, we're all finished. Medication delay. There it was again. Proof that what happened that night was not normal. Not even close. My fists clenched tightly. My nails digging into my palms. That was the moment. My grief officially turned into revenge. But I didn't know yet that the hospital was hiding something even darker. Something far worse than a simple mistake. And soon, I would discover a secret. They were willing to do anything to protect, even if it meant destroying me too. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this go. No matter what it took. I would find the truth. The next evening, I returned to the hospital again. But this time, I didn't go through the front entrance. I waited outside, watching, observing, until the staff started changing shifts. That's when I slipped inside quietly. My heart was pounding, but my mind was focused. I needed proof. Real proof. I walked through the dimly lit hallway, heading toward the records and security department. That's where the truth would be. CCTV footage. If I could get that, I could expose everything. As I reached the corridor near the security room, a voice suddenly stopped me. Hey you. I froze. Slowly, I turned around. It was a nurse. The same nurse who handed me my mother's belongings. Her eyes looked nervous, but different this time. Almost guilty. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. Ich zerrte her. Then why are you talking to me? I replied. She hesitated, looking around to make sure no one was watching. Then she stepped closer and whispered, because what happened to your mother wasn't an accident. My chest tightened. I know, I said quietly. I heard the recording. Her eyes widened in shock. You have it, she whispered. I nodded. For a moment she looked terrified. Then she made a decision. Come with me, she said. Before I could respond, she turned and started walking fast. I followed her through a narrow hallway, away from the main area. She opened a small side door and locked it behind us. This hospital, she said, her voice shaking, has been hiding mistakes for years. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I asked. She took a deep breath. Your mother wasn't the first. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. They delayed her medication, she continued, because the required drug wasn't available in stock. My fists clenched instantly. They ran out, I said angrily. She nodded slowly. And instead of admitting it, they tried to cover it up. My blood started boiling. They were supposed to prepare it before surgery, but no one checked. Her voice broke slightly, and when her condition worsened, it was already too late. I stepped back, trying to process everything. This wasn't just negligence. This was pure carelessness and corruption. They changed the reports, she said. They always do. Ooh, I asked sharply. She looked me straight in the eyes. The hospital management. Before I could say anything else, a loud sound echoed from outside. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps. The nurse's face turned pale instantly. They're coming, she whispered. My heart started racing again. Who? I asked. Security, she said. She quickly grabbed a small USB drive from her pocket and forced it into my hand. This has part of the CCTV footage, she said urgently. My eyes widened. Part? I asked. They already deleted most of it, but I managed to save this before they wiped the system. My grip tightened around the USB. This was it. Real evidence. Why are you helping me? I asked. For a second, she stayed silent. Then she said softly, because I can't live with this anymore. The footsteps grew louder. They were right outside the door now. Go, she whispered urgently. There's a back exit, run. But what about you? I asked. I'll handle it, she said quickly. Just don't come back here again. They're already watching you. Without wasting another second, I ran through the back hallway, out into the cold night air, my heart pounding, my mind racing. But this time, I wasn't empty. I had something powerful. Proof. Later that night, I sat alone in my room, staring at the USB drive. My hands trembled slightly as I plugged it into my laptop. The screen flickered, and then, the footage started playing. What I saw next made my blood run cold. A doctor, arguing with another staff member, shouting, panicking, and then clearly saying, "We don't have the medication. Just stabilize her somehow." My jaw tightened. This was it. The truth. Captured on camera. But just as I felt a sense of victory, my phone suddenly rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A cold, unfamiliar voice spoke. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." My heart skipped a beat. They knew. They knew everything. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a fight for justice anymore. This had become a dangerous war. That phone call changed everything. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. Those words kept echoing inside my head long after the call ended. My hands tightened around the phone. They weren't just hiding the truth anymore. They were threatening me, which meant only one thing. I was getting closer to the truth. That night, I locked every door in my apartment, checked every window, twice. Sleep didn't come easily. Every small sound felt like danger. Every shadow felt alive. But no matter how afraid I felt, one thing inside me burned stronger than fear. Revenge. Not blind revenge, but justice. For my mother. The next morning, I decided to watch the CCTV footage again. Frame by frame. Carefully. I needed something bigger. Something impossible to deny. As the footage played, I noticed something strange in the background. A doctor, arguing loudly with another staff member. His name tag was visible. Dr. Harris. He looked panicked, sweating, angry. I increased the volume. And then I heard it clearly. "We ran out of the medication 2 hours ago." My breathing stopped. 2 hours. That meant they knew. Long before my mother's condition got worse. And still, they did nothing. Suddenly, bang! A loud noise echoed from outside my apartment door. My heart jumped into my throat. Another loud hit followed. Bang! Bang! Someone was trying to break in. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my phone instantly, dialing emergency services. But before the call connected, the door burst open. Wood splintered across the floor. 2 masked men rushed inside. My mind froze. My body reacted before my brain could think. I grabbed the nearest chair and threw it toward them. One of them stumbled. That gave me just enough time to run. I sprinted toward the back exit, barefoot, heart racing, lungs burning. I didn't stop running until I reached the street outside. Cars passing, people walking. Safety. The attackers didn't follow. But the message was clear. They wanted the evidence. And they were willing to hurt me to get it. Later that day, I checked my phone again. A new message appeared. Unknown number. My heart pounded as I opened it. Next time you won't escape. Cold fear ran through my veins. But instead of backing down, my anger grew stronger. If they were this desperate, it meant the truth could destroy them. That evening, I received another call. This time from the nurse. Her voice sounded panicked. They're asking questions about me, she whispered. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I asked. They checked the security logs. They know someone. Copied the footage. Fear gripped my stomach. You're not safe there, I said. There was silence for a moment. Then she whispered. I found something bigger. My pulse quickened instantly. What is it? Her voice trembled. A list of patients. My breath stopped. What kind of list? I asked slowly. The patients who died after medication delays. Silence swallowed the room. Not one patient. Not two. Many. My mother wasn't the only victim. She was just one of many. That was the moment. My revenge turned into a mission. Not just for my mother, but for every family who lost someone because of their lies. That night, I sat at my laptop, thinking carefully. This couldn't go to the police alone. Not yet. If the hospital had this much power, they could bury the evidence again. I needed something bigger. Something public. Something impossible to hide. The media. If the truth reached the news, there would be no escape for them. I contacted an investigative journalist anonymously. Sent a small sample of the CCTV footage. Just enough to catch attention. Not enough to lose everything. Minutes felt like hours as I waited. Then, a reply came. We need to meet. This is big. My heart pounded faster. The final phase had begun. The moment that would decide everything. But I didn't know yet that the hospital was already planning something worse. Something final. Something deadly. And soon, someone close to the truth would be put in serious danger. The message from the journalist kept replaying in my mind. We need to meet. This is big. Those 4 words felt heavier than anything else. Because now, this wasn't just my fight anymore. The truth was about to go public. And once it did, there would be no turning back. That night, I prepared everything carefully. The USB drive, the voice recording, screenshots of the footage. I made multiple copies, saving them in different places. On my laptop, on an online drive, even on an old memory card hidden inside my wallet. If they tried to destroy one, others would survive. I wasn't taking any chances. Not anymore. The meeting was scheduled at a quiet cafe across town. A place far from the hospital. Far from their reach. Or at least, that's what I hoped. I arrived early, sitting in the corner where I could see the entrance clearly. Every person walking in made my heart skip. Every shadow felt suspicious. Minutes passed slowly. Then finally, a man walked inside. Tall, calm, serious expression. He scanned the room once, then walked straight toward my table. You're Daniel, he asked quietly. I nodded. I'm Mark, investigative journalist. His voice was steady, confident. Not afraid. That gave me a little hope. Without wasting time, I slid the USB drive across the table. Watch this, I said. He plugged it into his laptop and stared at the screen. At first, his expression stayed neutral. Then slowly, his eyes widened. His jaw tightened. He replayed the footage again, this time with more focus. After a long silence, he looked up at me. This is huge, he said quietly. How huge? I asked. His voice dropped lower. Big enough to shut down the entire hospital. My heart pounded louder. For the first time, I felt real hope. Justice wasn't just possible anymore. It was close. Very close. But suddenly, my phone started ringing. The nurse. My chest tightened instantly. I answered quickly. Hello. Her voice came through shaky, weak. They know it was me, she whispered. My heart stopped. What happened? I asked urgently. There was heavy breathing on the other side. They followed me after my shift. Fear crawled up my spine. Where are you right now? I asked. Parking lot, she whispered. And then, a loud crashing sound echoed through the phone. A scream. Then silence. The call disconnected. My hands froze. My entire body turned cold. She's in danger, I said to the journalist. He stood up immediately. Call emergency services, he said firmly. I dialed with shaking fingers. My heart pounding harder than ever before. That night, we rushed to the hospital parking lot. Police lights flashed everywhere. Red and blue reflections covered the ground. Ambulance sirens screamed through the air. My stomach twisted painfully. As I stepped closer, I saw her, the nurse, lying on the ground, unconscious, blood near her head. My legs almost gave out beneath me. This was my fault. She helped me, and now she was paying the price. A police officer blocked my path. You can't go any further, he said. But I didn't listen. I shouted her name. No response. She didn't move, didn't open her eyes, didn't speak. That moment broke something inside me. Not fear, not sadness, but hesitation. Because now, there was no doubt left. They were willing to hurt anyone to protect their secret. The journalist placed a hand on my shoulder. We move fast now, he said. No diles. I nodded slowly. My fists clenched tightly. Tears filled my eyes. But this time, they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of rage. Pure rage. That same night, the journalist uploaded the first piece of evidence to his newsroom. Just a short clip. Not everything, but enough. Enough to start the storm. The next morning, everything exploded. News channels began reporting the story. Hospital under investigation after leaked footage. Medical negligence scandal emerges. Phones rang non-stop. Social media flooded with anger. Families started coming forward, sharing their own stories, their own losses, their own pain. And that's when I realized something shocking. My mother was only one name in a very long list. But the hospital still hadn't given up. They were desperate now. Dangerous. Cornered. And desperate people do dangerous things. The morning after the news broke, the hospital went into complete panic. Reporters surrounded the building. Cameras flashed nonstop. Police vehicles lined the entrance. For the first time, the people who once acted powerful looked afraid. Within hours, the authorities launched an official investigation. More evidence surfaced. More victims came forward. Families who had stayed silent for years finally spoke. One by one, their stories sounded painfully similar. Medication delays, false reports, hidden mistakes. It wasn't just negligence anymore. It was a system of lies. Later that afternoon, the moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. Police officers entered the hospital building. Not quietly, not secretly, but publicly. In front of cameras. In front of everyone. Minutes later, they walked out again. But this time, they weren't alone. Between them was the man responsible for everything. The hospital CEO. His hands were cuffed. His face pale. His confidence gone. For the first time, he looked exactly how he should have from the beginning. Powerless. Days later, the courtroom was packed. Journalists. Victims' families. Lawyers. Everyone was there to witness the truth. And I was sitting in the front row. My hands clenched tightly. My heart beating loudly in my chest. This was it. The final step. Justice. The prosecution presented the evidence. The CCTV footage. The voice recordings. The patient list. Every lie. Every hidden mistake. Exposed. The courtroom remained silent as the footage played on the large screen. Doctors shouting. Staff panicking. The exact moment where someone clearly said, We don't have the medication ready. Gasps filled the room. Some families started crying. Others stared in shock. Years of lies. Finally collapsing in front of everyone. Then, the nurse was brought into the courtroom. Alive. Weak, but alive. A bandage covered her head. But her voice was strong. She told the court everything. How medications were delayed. How reports were changed. How management forced staff to stay silent. Her testimony was the final blow. The truth was undeniable now. Impossible to hide. Impossible to escape. Finally, the judge spoke. The entire courtroom fell. Silent. You could hear nothing. Except breathing. The court finds the hospital management guilty of criminal negligence and fraud. My chest tightened. Tears filled my eyes. Not from sadness, but from relief. Real justice. At last, the CEO and several senior staff members were sentenced to prison. The hospital was permanently shut down. Their reputation destroyed. Their lies exposed. Everything they built on deception collapsed. Weeks later, I stood alone at my mother's grave. Fresh flowers in my hand. Soft wind moving through the trees. For the first time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. I did it, Mom, I whispered softly. They can't hurt anyone anymore. A tear rolled down my cheek. But this time, it wasn't pain. It was closure. Because revenge was never about destruction. It was about truth. About justice. About making sure no one else suffers the same fate. If this story touched your heart, and you believe that truth should never be hidden, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more powerful revenge stories. Because sometimes, justice only happens when someone refuses to stay silent.